Welcome back to Paul's Pod. Before we start, I've got to give a massive shout out to Ben and Connor from Amity Studio. Very, very, very good guys that accommodated us last time for the Groovy Garage podcast. And we've also got Harry that has helped set up this as well. So shout out to those guys. But today we are joined by the lovely Isabelle Latifa Barker. How are you? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Thanks so much for having me on.
It's all right. Thank you for coming on. So you're a sports journalist. You do MMA content, boxing content, fighting content in general, and you're also working with doing Premier League reporting, aren't you? How long have you been, like, just start from the beginning, how did you get into journalism? Like, have you always been a sports fanatic? Or?
Yes, I'm a determined little scrote, and I think I got into football when I was about maybe like 5, playing. I support Fulham, massive Fulham fan. My dad, there was no other way I wasn't going to be a Fulham fan. And I think just from a very early age, I realised how difficult it is as a woman or a girl to get into sport. And, you know, I like campaigned to have a girls' football team at my school, and I campaigned to even like have it mentioned in assembly and things like that. So I was always very determined. And yeah, and then I just loved writing as well. And I thought, how can I kind of put the two together? And then I won a scholarship with News UK, who work with like TalkSport, Times and Sun, to become like one of the first ever female reporters. And then, yeah, I just
What was that?
That was 4 years ago. And everyone thinks it would be really difficult to work for like a tabloid or something like The Sun, I think, because it's literally just men. But I think you do have to be quite confident, but I found it really rewarding. I don't know, I found them all really supportive. And yeah, I've definitely had a few setbacks, but yeah, just kind of never looked back since, really.
When was like the first time that you, like, obviously you said you've been a sports fanatic for so long, growing up, being a Fulham supporter, but when was like the first time you thought, you know, I want to give journalism a go as being my career?
This is really niche, right? So at the 2010 World Cup, there was a reporter called Sara Carbonero. She's a Spanish reporter, and she was on screen, and Spain had just won the World Cup, and she got kissed by
Casillas.
Casillas. I was like, who is this woman? Like, I just thought it was so cool. Obviously, we all know how that's turned out now. They're divorced, and then he just tweeted that he was gay.
No.
So, yeah, I mean, I didn't want to go down that path or anything, but that was, yeah, apparently all a prank or something or whatever.
Possibly, I don't know. Yeah. Poyol might have a different opinion.
Yeah, I digress. But I just thought, like, who is this amazing woman on TV? And it just made me think that you could put the two together. You know, you could be a woman, you could talk about sport. And yeah, I think she really inspired me. She was one of the first women I saw on working with football. And I thought, yeah, I think that was like, yeah, 2010. I loved football at the time. The tournament was crazy in South Africa. And yeah, and then I just, like I said, really liked my writing as well. And then I like applied for a journalism course at Nottingham Trent Uni. It was probably on the sesh every day, somehow scraped through that. And then obviously got the scholarship. So yeah.
Would you say she was one of your big inspirations then growing up?
I'd say so. The only other one I remember is Jackie Oatley. She commented on a Fulham game. She was like the first ever woman on Match of the Day commentating, I believe. And yeah, so she was another one, but probably Sara Carbonero as well. But there really wasn't many. And then especially, we'll come on to this, why I kind of got into MMA and stuff, covering MMA. There's even fewer in like the fighting scene. In print reporting of martial arts or boxing, I think there's like one that I can think of, Sarah Shepherd. And so that made me think, so not only with the football, because I think football's better now for women and we've got more idols. You've got people like Natalie Sawyer on TalkSport and stuff like that who are great. But actually writing about boxing or having their own podcast, there's not that many. So that's what really kind of inspired me to get into that, I guess.
Why do you think it is so hard for women to kind of break through such a male-dominated area? Like, do you think there's anything specific, or do you think it's because, you know, male sports has kind of always been the forefront of it, or I think the change in the times? Like, what do you think
it is? Changing at times, but I guess it's like, it is quite an intimidating place. Like I was mentioning earlier about like getting involved with News UK, like The Sun and TalkSport. Like you're working with people like Alan Brazil or whatever, or really difficult sports editors. And yeah, as I was saying, I think these are quite intimidating figures and you've got to work with them. And also like interviewing an angry football manager or an angry player. Like I remember I was covering Fulham and Leeds, and I love Fulham, and Fulham had just beaten them. This is when we were both in the Championship. Are you a Leeds fan?
I'm not a Leeds fan, but I have followed Leeds for a while.
Yeah. It was when we were both in the Championship, and I was covering Fulham v Leeds, and Leeds had, the song "Leeds Are Falling Apart Again." It was kind of around Christmas, and they hadn't been promoted to the Premier League again. There was a dip in results, and I had to interview one of their players afterwards. I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but he was really angry about it. And so these are quite intimidating spaces to go into. And I think I got something wrong. I said that they'd lost 9 games and they'd lost 8, and he picked me up on that. And it was just like, you have to kind of have thick skin, I think. And obviously for women, there's not enough idols to kind of look up to, like I was saying. So it's difficult for them to get into it. And kind of it's cringe, but it's like you have to see it to be it type thing. And there's not really many women talking about boxing and things like that. There's not enough. So it's like about taking that leap of faith and being like, having that confidence in yourself to get into it, because it's like, it's not as if you can just pick up the phone to a load of female colleagues and be like, oh, how did you get into it? Because there's not really that many. And with men, something I really admire about men is that when men are writing an email, they'll just be like, hi, do this. Bye. Whereas women, I don't know what it is. I'm generalizing a bit, but like the majority of women are like, oh, could you possibly do this? No worries. So men are just a little bit more, they're not meaning to be, but a bit more cutthroat.
Yeah.
And I feel like women find that a bit intimidating, or men are being rude, but they're not. And I think I've kind of tried to adopt that approach a bit, but I'm digressing, but you know what I mean?
Do you think, putting yourself in those circumstances, the challenging situations, really testing yourself, how has that helped you grow as a journalist and then as a person?
As I was saying, I think I've always been really determined and a little bit like cocky, but I think in a good way. I think with women, like you're often, I love how, you see it with male fighters, right? They can be cocky and arrogant and, go to a press conference like Conor McGregor or whatever, and they're celebrated for that. Whereas like with Clarissa Shields recently, for example, she's so great in the build up to her fight. She's so cocky. Like she's just like talking absolute shit to Savannah Marshall. And I think it's amazing, but she's criticized so much for doing that. And I think like, yeah, I have grown as a person, but like I've always been quite confident in myself. Yeah. And I think you get criticized a bit for doing that. I think everyone does. But yeah, I think it's just like, probably I've just developed thick skin over time. And also just sort of having a bit of like, I think it's the thick skin in the sense that you're going to get so many rejections from things. You just have to have belief in yourself and not take things too personally in this industry, because you probably feel the same as well.
Yeah. You touched upon the Savannah Marshall fight. How was that? That was the first ever all boxing event that was just all female fighters. You went to it, didn't you?
Yeah,
What was it like?
Yeah, it was amazing. Like I was saying, the build up was like, it was a weird one because like,
it got rescheduled, didn't it?
Yeah, it got rescheduled because the Queen died. Yeah. So like that was obviously a big deal, and that took the forefront, whatever. But like the build up, they really tried to promote it. So like the media workout was on a boat. So we all got on a boat and they were like sparring and like light sparring, doing their light workouts, whatever, on this boat. And I did feel really bad for them. Like these poor boxers, like they're weight cutting, having to go on a boat in like the Thames.
There's so much that they've got to do for Big Media Week. It's crazy.
It's like raining. They're probably feeling a bit nauseous. And then they've got to get up in front of all these journalists and like, and have a workout in the ring, whatever. And so they did that. And yeah, there was some really nice stories to come out of that. Like one of the girls, I think it just showed that these female boxers were just like everyday people. Like one of them really liked watching Only Way is Essex when she was done. And there were like, they tried to get a lot of VIPs involved with the event because they actually weirdly weren't selling that many tickets, which is what the point I was trying to make actually is.
It was the first ever time they were doing it,
yeah,
so it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, I remember Katie Taylor saying, Eddie Hearn once said to Katie Taylor, like, look, we're going to have an all-female card in, I don't know where it was, I think it was in America, and he expected us to be like, oh my God, that's amazing. She was like, what the fuck? I don't want to do that. I want to be headlining a male card or whatever. So it's a difficult one. The women on the card were obviously bigging it up, but it's a weird one in the sense that it's more like actually women should have their own right on on
well, I
events.
think it's still a step in the right direction. Like, I think women's sport has come such a long way. Like, you know, Dana White famously said, you know, a little bit ago that female fighters would never fight in the UFC, and there are some female fighters that are just absolute beasts that would, you know, eat up some of the men. And
yeah, I think you see that with you know, I think with Savannah Marshall and Clarissa Shields fight, people were like racing to get home from wherever just to like make sure they could sit in the front of the TV and watch it, because it wasn't just like, oh, it was a really good fight because good women's fight. It was a good boxing fight regardless. And also I loved that build up, like talking shit to each other, like
you don't see it.
You don't see it as much, and because women are afraid of what they'll say. Like Caroline Dubois, I've worked with her a bit and she's very quiet, but then you catch her and just have a normal chat with her and she says such funny things, but I think they're scared of, you know, the backlash they get on social media.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think it's because they just feel like if they just kind of stick to their shell a little bit, they're not going to be...
with women, when I go on TalkSport or something and they film it and put it on YouTube, I'm criticized for like my appearance and things like that, whereas a man is criticized for just being an idiot. Like, call me an idiot. If you don't agree with my opinions, that's absolutely fine. Like, swear at me, tell me to fuck off, whatever. Whereas don't say get out of the kitchen or whatever, you know, don't bring my gender into it or my appearance, you know. And I think that relates to boxing and MMA as well.
Is that something that is still like quite at the forefront for a lot of female people in sports?
In terms of like trolling or
Is it still like pretty bad?
Yeah, like I remember, like I was saying I have thick skin. It's interesting actually, but when I did the Anthony Joshua interview, obviously that was like the most watched interview I'd ever done on YouTube, and like the comments are just like trolling, and like I'm just an everyday person, and it's just like it's all from men. It's really weird things that people will say, and you can say, oh, I'm not going to read it, I'm going to just like ignore it. But it's about you. Yeah. Like, you're like, how many views, millions of views it gets or whatever. And then all these hundreds and hundreds of comments trolling you. So that was like probably like it was supposed to be such a high point of my career interviewing Anthony Joshua. But actually, I got all this trolling from men that I was like, oh, I don't know, is this what I want to do type thing?
Really? Did it really make you question things?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it makes you want to become a bit of a recluse, I think. Like, because like I literally did nothing wrong. It was like a fun interview. It was like, 12 rounds of AJ, and it was like fun questions. Like, it really wasn't serious at all. It was like, who would you prefer, like Tyson Fury or Mike Tyson? Like, it was very basic fun questions. There was not much to pick apart from it. And then people just, all the focus was on me and like trolling and whatever. And then the odd comment would be like, oh, this was a really nice interview. This is the first time we'd seen AJ sort of like let down his guard and just have a bit of fun, which it was, but the shine kind of got taken off it.
Sure.
And then I think it just, reading those comments, I was like, oh, like I don't even want to watch it. Like I don't even, it's definitely still, I look at the interview and look at the pictures and I'm a bit like, oh, like if you're in the spotlight, you have to take so much shit.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit. I think putting yourself out there in general, I think you're open to criticism. It's just, like I said, it's so much easier said than done. You'll get like 100 good comments about how good the interview is, but if you got 1,000 bad comments, it's the other way around. If you got if you get 1,000 good comments, but you only read 100 bad comments, the bad comments are always going to stick out more than the good.
Exactly. Unfortunately, it was probably more the other way around that you said. It was probably more bad comments than good, because
I'm sure that just comes down to insecurity, though.
Exactly. I was literally going to say, it's their own fragile inner self. I don't know, their insecurities or whatever, and they're just jealous.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of people that get jealous. There's always going to be someone that's jealous of the position that you're in.
Yeah, like, I don't know. It's supposed to be a nice thing. Like, I always believe you've got to celebrate people. Like, you've got to be allies to each other in this industry. Like, you've got to big other people up, but particularly women, like other female reporters. I'm always just like, I would never criticize them because I know what they probably had to go through. Well, everyone's gone through stuff.
And you can't, I think in business in general, you can't really take things personally.
Exactly. That's why it's like, I think it's really good to like take your Twitter mentions off, or like just don't, if you can, just please don't read the comments or anything like that. It
is hard to say, but definitely that's a good way to look at it. But when did you start getting involved in boxing and MMA then? Because if you were such a big football fanatic rather, like when did you start watching? When you start watching like MMA or boxing?
So first year of uni, I got really into Muay Thai and I started training it. So I think that must be like 7 years ago now. Yeah. And I had this amazing trainer called Lee Chester. I think he was European champion, but like this was back in the days.
Yeah.
He's like this gnarly bloke from Sheffield. The gym's like a bit kind of mishmash. Like he doesn't like anything on Instagram, not flashy at all.
School.
Yeah, really old school. I just loved his style. And his son, Ryan Chesters, is actually a really good Thai boxing fighter. I think he's like in his weight class, he's UK champion. I'd have to double check. But yeah, they're both just a really good family of Thai boxers. And he was just hilarious. The training was the most grueling thing of my life. And I was going through like a really bad relationship and breakup. And the solace that I found was going to Thai boxing. And I think I just got into it through that. And I remember a big sort of like, moment, like was when I watched Katie Taylor's documentary on Netflix. I just got really...
Is that Katie? Is that what it's called? Yeah.
I don't think it's on there anymore because it was something I would repeatedly watch, and I don't think I'd be even come home drunk and be like, I'm going to put Katie Taylor's documentary on. I just loved it.
Have you seen the Molly McCann one? That BT Sport?
Yeah. Watched that one. I've probably watched them all. Like I really enjoy watching like a fighter's journey because I used to watch back in the day. What was it? And they used to follow like a UFC fighter. What was it called?
I'm trying to think. It's not the embedded vlogs.
No.
What are you thinking of?
UFC used to do their own little thing. I'd have to double check.
I'm not sure. The UFC do loads of content like that, to be honest. I feel shit that I don't know it, though. Yeah, of course.
Because I used to watch this little thing and they'd like follow the fighter. Because I was talking to Paul Daly about it. Hang on.
I'm trying to think. The UFC do loads of content like that. I'm trying to pinpoint.
I remember he said it in my interview.
Paul Daly, what a fucking guy he is, by the way. Just retired on top as well. Vicious knockout. I think Paul Daly goes under the radar in UK MMA.
No, that's not it. HBO 24/7, Showtime All Access.
Oh, okay,
right.
Okay,
that was it, yeah. So HBO, hang on, let me look at the name, HBO 24/7. Yeah, HBO 24/7 and Showtime All Access. They used to follow more of the story of a fighter, kind of like the grassroots and how they kind of got into it and things like that. And I love those little kind of old clips of fighters and things like that. And I feel like we've lost that a bit now. When I interviewed Paul Daly, he was saying we're missing the stories of fighters now. It's all about what they put on their Instagram. Yeah. It's all about...
Look at me, I'm training hard.
Yeah. It's what they choose to put on. Whereas, when you saw these raw, old school kind of shows that followed a fight around, then you'd get, a real flavour of their personality. And I really liked those shows. I remember watching them. And obviously, like I said, Katie's documentary, I remember there's a scene. And it must be that she was basically the woman that got women's boxing in the Olympics. Like, she's a hero. She's an icon. And
women's gold.
Yeah. Like,
100%.
Yeah. And so it's the London 2012 Olympics and she makes it into the final, like it's a huge moment for Ireland. And at the end, it's like, it's a really close fight that no one was too sure which way it was going to go. It could have gone either way. And she wins and she just sort of like falls to the floor. Like she's overcome with emotion. She's such a quiet, like reserved person. And, she's just in business mode all the time. But to see her kind of have this like release of emotions, like I got emotional watching it. And I think that really kind of cemented how much like I love boxing and
fighting is so much more of an emotional sport. The stories are so much better, especially I think nowadays with football. I think back in the day it was different because footballers, in the 80s and the 90s, very charismatic, Nowadays, everyone's just media trained and you don't even know what a person's like, really.
Completely agree. That's exactly, you've hit the nail on the head. That's why I got into it. It was because football was becoming too sanitized to cover.
It's like robots when you hear them.
Yeah, and it's like, I try to get exclusive interviews with a footballer. One, it's really difficult. Two, you're probably having to ask set questions that you've agreed with them. Whereas you go interview someone about an MMA fighter or whatever, and they'll be telling you about their dead nan. Like, it's just a great, I don't know, really emotional story.
I think it's more real, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Way
like, I just interviewed Luke Trainer. He's going to fight. I don't know when.
He's fighting tomorrow, isn't
He's
he?
fighting. Is it not today, isn't it?
Or did he
in
have the
Milan.
ring today?
I thought it was today.
Oh, it might be today. I could be wrong, to be fair.
Saturday, yeah, today.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, shit, yeah. It's
well, I
Saturday,
mean,
yeah.
it will be on Saturday. I don't know when this pod's coming out.
Yeah.
But, and he just, I think he's quite open about it, but he's got a really nice story about how he works with foster kids because his family have always fostered kids, and now he wants to kind of create a link between Bellator and foster kids and create training sessions for kids that have been through awful things. But that kind of brings me back to what I was saying about how, you know, martial arts is such a release for people. So you have really interesting stories, you know, people that had lives of crime, you know, Leon Edwards, we all know his story. Like, his dad was in a gang and he could have gone down a similar path if it hadn't have been for that. And sort of what I was saying about how I was just doing Muay Thai training sessions at uni because I was going through a really difficult breakup. I think you just,
There's a connection for sure.
yeah, I don't know, it just it brings a lot to your life, and you can be going through the most awful things and you can just kind of shut off and have a training session, and makes you feel a lot better. So you meet like amazing characters. I think you meet the best people in the world, the most crazy people in the world, but in a good way. Yeah,
it's also so humbling. Like, in my experience of being around fighters and being in a fight game, I've learned so much about myself, just in terms of the training and just in terms of surrounding yourself by these super athletes and their mentality. And we were just talking before about the paychecks that these guys get. For what they do, for the money they get, is absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, like, yeah, we were obviously having a chat about that.
That's kind of different.
True, but like we were talking about Muay Thai specifically, and it's such a beautiful sport. And, you know, it's the art of 8 limbs. Like, it's just, there's so much goes into it. I've never seen something with such grueling training before, like a lot of martial arts are. But you're risking your life as well. And then you have to be at the very, very top of, say, one championship. Maybe like you've got a John Haggerty in this country who's earning money off Muay Thai. And that's probably almost
the only ones. Yeah,
like, there's a few other UK fighters, but say my trainer at Fight Zone, Jose Baralda, like, he's a top Muay Thai fighter, and he's coaching people. Yes, his coaching's brilliant and he's coaching at a great place, but realistically he would want to be training, you know, day in day out. Like,
and that's what fighters have got to do, because you've got to be in the gym. And the other thing that I really took away from my experience when I was training was seeing firsthand the effort and the time that these guys put in and how hard it is to get to the top. Like, seeing, so I was fortunate enough to train with people like Justin Bernardson, not obviously train with, just train alongside rather. Justin Bernardson, Jack Grant, Charles Joyner, and many more, Chris Duncan, who signed to the UFC as well. And, you know, seeing them give literally every ounce of effort into their you know, their craft, and still not be where they want to be, is like, wow.
It's like 3 or 4 sessions a day sometimes. And then also they're having to fund, you know, I don't know, they're being matched up with people, say that person pulls out the fight. They've then tried to have already sorted out nutrition for their camp, or like a strength and conditioning coach, you know, all of these things that you have to think about. And then say someone pulls out the fight, like, I was talking to Fabian Edwards recently, and he's fighting Charlie Ward at Bellator Milan, and he is a very pissed off man because Charlie pulled out of the fight in November, and Fabian's probably making quite good money now. Like, I don't think he'd mind me saying that, but, you know, he was like, I make money from this and you're pulling out the fight. You saw all these sponsorships and things like that.
It takes money off the fight for the kids.
So it's just,
I've got families to feed at the end of the day.
So yeah, it's a crazy scene, isn't it? Like, there's swings and roundabouts, I guess. Like we were saying, there's great characters, but like, it's still, I don't know, a bumpy road, isn't it? Like, things can go wrong still.
So you said before that obviously some interviews, you know, when you're interviewing pissed off footballers or stuff, how does that differ to then fighters if you're interviewing and they've just lost, or if they're gearing up for a fight?
Oh, see, I think with fighters, it's weird, actually. You think with a fight and like a hungry, tired fighter, and just before they've weighed in or whatever, would be worse to interview. But footballers and managers are way worse. When they're under
more
pressure.
diva.
Sorry?
Do you think the footballers are more like divas?
Levers in the sense.
Like divas.
Oh, divas.
Divas.
Yes, yeah. I think they're like, if they're under pressure to get results, like say Roy Hodgson, hugely have so much respect for Roy Hodgson, right? Like, and everything he did for Fulham and everything in football, like he's amazing. But when he was at Watford recently, he was under a lot of pressure, and I was covering Watford, and I'd really have to think about the questions I was going to ask him, because if you asked him a question that, you know, he thought was a waste of time, he'd let you know. Have you seen that clip of him that's gone viral that he's like, "You're taking the fucking piss. You know, ask me that question again. It was a penalty." Go watch it if you haven't. But yeah, and so I was thinking that's going to happen to me if I ask the wrong question. But with a fighter, I think they're kind of used to it. Like, I don't know. I think this part and parcel of it, they get it. Like, I think because fighting is more, it's huge. It is huge now, like MMA, but money-wise, like we were saying, it's probably still nothing compared to the whole package of football. So they really want to promote it. The MMA fighters, they're more up for doing interviews and press conferences because they're characters. They want to get themselves out there. Whereas with football, it's like they can pick and choose.
Yeah, well, footballers, they've always got their own brands and their sponsors and their club sponsors. Whereas fighters, they are their own brand. If they don't self-promote themselves, no one's going to want to buy tickets to their fight, and they're not going to make money. So kind of goes hand in hand. So how long have you known that you've wanted to, you know, kind of focus more on fighting and boxing and MMA as opposed to just football?
I think it's probably been like a couple years maybe. As like literally the reason, as we were saying, is that it's just better characters, less sanitized. Obviously it's just a great spectacle to watch as well. And I think I was just really lucky in the sense that my first interview was Leon Edwards, which is quite mad to say now because he's champ, and like it's to get an interview with him now is probably quite difficult. Like, you've met him, haven't you? But and he's so lovely, but still, like, now I think it'd be a bit of a stricter process, whereas like I literally just did it through one of his trainers. I knew them kind of because he trained a footballer that I knew as well, and I was like, oh, really lovely on Edwards.
Edwards doesn't really like doing a lot of media as well.
Yeah, and he was actually he was sound, and and then I just set it up through his trainer, like the most casual thing ever. Like, I sent Leon a Zoom link, then we went on Zoom together. Like, no press officer or anything was like mediating or checking what I was saying.
That's what, again, that just shows though, again, fighting, like you don't get that with football.
Exactly. And like, yeah, I think I was really lucky that my first experience of covering MMA went really well, because not only did I interview Leon Edwards, it was before the Nate Diaz fight that I think Nate Diaz got an injury and then it got rearranged. So it was before the first one, but it went on and happened anyway. But like we just got a really nice story out of it. Like, he said, with my first paycheck, I made sure I brought my nan over to England and I got her a pair of hearing aids. Like, it was just from Jamaica. Such a nice story, isn't it? Like, it makes you fall in love with these fighters. And I was like, wow, like, I don't want to stop here. And then the story also got shared on like loads of kind of like local Instagram pages. I don't know, like a Birmingham Instagram page, because obviously he's from Birmingham. And it was just nice to see kind of communities like reading it and sharing that it was a nice piece. So yeah, I just went from there really, and I had a good first experience.
What would you say your best and worst interviews were?
In boxing and MMA?
In general. Like, what's the most awkward interview you think you've ever done so
far?
The
most awkward ones are going to be someone that's shy or doesn't like speaking, or if you've not done your prep. So I actually interviewed, I think listeners and viewers of this podcast will know Alicia Lehman. She's an amazing footballer for Aston Villa and did play for the Swiss team. But
she's the one going out with Douglas Luiz.
Yeah, a lot of people. She takes the piss out of this. A lot of people know her for her looks and things like that, and she's got like millions of followers on TikTok and things like that. She was lovely to interview, but at the time it was quite like a difficult subject which I was trying to talk about, because at the time she was dating a Chelsea women's player called Ramona Bashman. They were public with their relationship, and at the time she was playing for West Ham, and West Ham were playing Chelsea. So I wanted to say, like, you know, what's it like in your house at the minute? You're about to play each other in the women's equivalent of the Premier League, the WSL. Like, is it awkward? As well. Like, things like that. And I'd been told that she didn't like talking about Ramona. So I think those interviews you just have to like be a bit careful with. It wasn't the worst interview. Probably one of the worst ones is when someone like Roy Hodgson's been grumpy. But the best one, potentially that first Leon one, because someone asked me to show what bit of work I was most proud of once when I went back to my old uni. And that was that one, because I think it was just a really nice, like, people's like human
Yeah.
story. You know what I mean?
And being a first one as well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And he was really sweet as well. Trying to think what else.
Surely the AJ one's got to be up there.
AJ's got to be up there, but there was a lot of pressure, and like I say, I got really trolled afterwards. So like it kind of took the shine off it a bit. AJ, you can't see it in the clip, but I had about 50 people watching behind me. So everyone, and I hadn't supplied all the questions because it was like supposed to be a fun interview, and some people submitted questions, and it was like, "Can you show me your wallet?" And I was like, "You're asking me to ask AJ to show me his wallet? I'm about to get punched in the face before he does." Like, it was like, that was quite difficult actually. But nah, he was really good fun. I remember asking him, yeah, that's definitely up there. I asked him, like, what's the best place in Watford to go to? Because obviously he comes from Watford. And he was just like, it was like chatting to your mate. He was like, oh, the Badger pub. I was like, the Badger pub. And he was like, yeah, I'd have a Guinness and Ribena. I was like, this is not the AJ we know. And he was like, and I was like, what would it be like if Tyson went to the pub with you? And he was like, oh, he'd drink me under the table. So it was like fun little quotes from that. So yeah, that was up there. But I think a lot of the MMA ones are good fun. Like I was saying, like the Luke Trainer one, he's just like an inspiring person. All his foster care work's just a really interesting story. Fabian Edwards is always good crack. Like he's always a bit sassy. He's always got something to say about his opponent, or, you know, the path to getting a shot at the world title. But yeah, what about yours actually?
I'd say my favorite interview that I've done was probably Paul Felder. That was this summer. Just because, so I met him in March for the first UFC London, and, you know, I'm like, I think we're probably a little bit similar. I'm very cheeky and I'm very like open, and I'll just, like if I want to ask something to someone, I'm not afraid to ask them, type of thing.
Yeah.
And I spoke to him briefly and got his email and spoke to him. And obviously, because of how good that night was, basically Dana White said the same night that they're going to be coming back. So he followed me on my podcast from the email I sent him, and I was like, "Oh, listen, if they come back, I'd love to film with you." He was like, "Yeah, sure, don't worry, like, all good." And you know, Paul Felder is such a big figure in the UFC now. You know, had a really successful career in the UFC. He's a ridiculous analyst, and he's someone that like I look up to. Like, it's just for what he's achieved.
Me, one of your idols, type
for sure.
Yeah.
Like, and getting to speak to him, even though it was only a short interview, 15 minutes. I just really, really enjoyed it. And there was another one with Adam Carroll as well, who's the BT Sport.
One,
and he's someone else that I like really look up to. So to be able to interview those people in a job that you can, it's the same for you really. It's like people that you're looking up to in the industry, they're really cool. The worst one I ever did was probably this rapper called 90s. I've since removed the 90s.
Oh, 90s.
Yeah, I've since removed the podcast off my YouTube. It's the only one that I've not kept on.
Like, it's so awkward.
It's just a bit of an arsehole, to be honest. Like,
to you,
not even so much to me directly, but just like the energy that he pulls across. It's like, I just don't really want that on my channel. And it's just like the way he was just talking and acting. I was like, bro, come on, just chill out. Because I know two of the other guys that he used to make music with. Well, I know one of them better than the other, but I also know them a lot better than 90s himself. And I just don't really buy into this whole image that he's trying to. Yeah, I just think he's a bit of a prick, to be honest.
I mean, I was going to be like watching it on the train, but it's been removed.
I was watching it, but yeah.
I don't think I've ever removed anything. I'm trying to think if I've ever had like a complaint or anything. I got banned from Manchester United women once. This was ridiculous, and I'll happily come on here and say that, because Casey Stoney was manager at the time, right? And she's a brilliant woman. Like, she's, you know, not afraid to say how it is, and I love that. And she was on the touchline and she was really kicking off about like a referee's decision, and I reported about that because the fans were being really not that she was being over the top, but they were being really aggro as well.
Yeah.
And they were playing Liverpool, and there'd been a few chants about, you know, things like they'd mentioned Hillsborough and stuff like that, really offensive chants, and she was just being really angry on the touchline. I'd reported about that, and she said afterwards, you know, you wouldn't do that about men, whereas I think we would, because you see people like Jose Mourinho going mental, and we love that. Like, I was just reported on my first Champions League game, the Spurs Sporting Lisbon one. Antonio Conte got sent off at the end, and I did a whole piece on that. He came in the press conference and he stormed off after one question. We went in on that, so it wasn't that she was a woman and we were saying she was being dramatic or anything like that. But
you're just trying to tell the story.
Yeah, and they did not like the report, and I got banned for a bit, but then I got let in. Then I went to her press conferences again, and it was fine. But yeah, that's probably the worst experience I've had.
I don't think I've ever been banned from.
I don't think even to get banned from something in MMA.
I mean, you got banned for a very harsh reason.
Yeah, I thought that was unfair.
Yeah.
I thought, and also I'm a woman at the end of the day. Like, I would have picked up on if I was being sexist. I don't know. I don't think I was at all. But anyway, yeah, I think if I got banned from MMA, you'd have to do something really bad. What would you have to do?
You'd probably just.
Because it's almost like if you ask a stupid question in front of a press conference in MMA,
Five will just kind of
it's kind of funny, like, because they'll be like, it gives them their chance to retaliate and have their little moments, so it's not as bad. Whereas in football, it's like, you just said that, like, you shouldn't be back.
I saw a funny video actually on Twitter the other day. I don't know where you saw it. Some complete randomer went up to Nate Diaz. They just started recording an interview in his face without him asking. And Nate Diaz is literally just doing the same thing back, just recording and interviewing in his face. I think some people just go a bit too far. I think that's kind of where you could probably only get banned. You know, if you just a bit much and a bit kind of in your face.
You've got to pick your moments, like we were saying earlier. Like, don't shove a camera in a fighter's face ahead of you.
At the end of the day, like, no one just wants to.
Yeah. I have seen a video of Nate Diaz actually slapping a reporter. I think. Have you seen that?
I know the guy that got slapped. Oh geez, Sean. No he's the full send MMA reporter. So do you know why he got slapped?
No, tell me.
So he got slapped.
This is a scoop.
So basically, you know Nick Maximov?
Yeah.
So he trains with Nate Diaz. And basically there was a video that went viral on TMZ, and it was a TMZ reporter asking Nate Diaz about fighting Khamzat Chimaev. This was before anything got announced or anything. Right. It was like, would you fight Khamzat Chimaev? And Nick Maximov is in the back just chilling, like he's not expected like the camera or a question to be focused on him. And Nate Diaz just replies to me and goes, no, but boy, Nick Maximov will take him on like right now if he wants. And you can see Nick Maximov just like look at Nate like, oh yeah. Like it was like a meme, like a proper awkward meme. Like he clearly did not want to fight Khamzat Chimaev. And Sean OG, he made it like, I think he just reshared the meme. I think that's all he did. And basically it was his first ever UFC event. It was the first time he was working on as a full center MMA reporter.
My God.
And he's gone up to Nate Diaz. It was for Sean O'Malley's fight against Pedro Munoz, I think. And he's just gone up to him. He said, "Oh, are you here for the sugar show?" And Nate Diaz just goes, "Oh yeah, you better watch your mouth about what you say about my boy." And he's like, "Oh yeah," and they just slapped him.
That is an inside scoop though. I didn't know that. Wow.
And then when I was there as well for UFC 278, so the week before that there was Chito Vera versus what's his name now, Frankie Edgar, I think it was, as a fight night, and Sean OG was there and he interviewed Chito Vera after the fight. Now obviously Chito Vera, he is Ecuadorian. I think he's from Ecuador.
Yeah.
And it was Mexican Independence weekend, I think, and OG basically got like natural Libre masks. Like it was like a completely funny thing. Like it wasn't anything like
no bad intentions.
Yeah, exactly. And like he spoke to Cheeto's manager before about it, and Cheeto was obviously a little bit taken back by it, but he wasn't asked about it. And Chito Vera and Luke Rockhold are really good friends, they're training partners. And Luke Rockhold in the press conference the week after, just in front of the entire media scrum, just calls out OG, the full send guy. He's like, you've got to do your homework better. All these new generation of like reporters don't know what they're talking about, basically roasting him in front of everyone, when Chito didn't really have a problem with it. And then obviously Luke Rockhold just turned into a meme. There was a funny meme of him basically saying, like, it was him cut out, put on a green screen of like him out of school, and like him like screaming at kids saying, you got to do your homework. That's my biggest fear, is being turned into a meme.
Being turned into a meme, actually. It's probably worse. But in front of a whole press conference saying not done my prep.
I think that's unfair as well, to be honest, to be outed in front of everyone like that.
Oh, it's brutal. Like, it'd be so embarrassing.
Yeah.
I'd give myself the ick doing it. I'd never come back.
No.
I'd retire.
The worst thing that happened to me was pretty recently, to be honest. I made a pretty bold prediction on the Oliveira Makachev
I
fight.
saw, yes.
You see how bad it was?
Yeah.
It was so bad. It was miles off. And I already had, like, before the fight happened, I already had a few people that had, like, commented on it and said, "Yo, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to come back to this." And I think the video might have been on maybe like 3,000 views, 4,000 views before. Makachev has since absolutely destroyed Oliveira. The video's now on 55,000 views, and all it is people absolutely ripping into me. But it's pretty funny.
Yeah, you got
Like,
the views at least.
I got the views. Like,
Pays the bills.
I think that's kind of, like you were saying before, the balance of not reading the bad comments or the good comments, or kind of just being able to maybe make fun of yourself a little bit, because I was just laughing at some of the comments. Like, there was some
if
the
they're
McGregor
saying,
fanboy debate was the big one, or casual. That was the one I was being called. I'm a casual.
if you're, I don't know, if they're like saying just about your prediction or whatever, I think that's sound. But then it's like, if it actually gets all like personal, which people often do, then it's like, why are you doing that? It's not that deep.
Yeah, it's not deep.
Why are you so irritated on the internet getting behind?
All these people are just sat scrolling at home, just fucking laying in bed, eating food, getting fat, not doing anything.
Sounds like me. That's what I do every day.
I like doing that, getting stoned and just watching TV.
Yeah, I was wondering actually, I don't know if this will go in the podcast, how much do you say, like, what can you say and not say on this podcast?
You can say anything.
Okay.
I'll keep this in.
You keep all of it in, okay.
I think I'm lucky that in the first episode I did was literally me and my boys just getting stoned and drinking.
Yeah, I think that's better though.
I think, like, I don't want to make my podcast about, oh, look at me, I smoke weed. It's not about that. It's just more, that's just who I am.
Yeah, like,
I want people to, like, not look at me and think I've got something, covering. Like, I want people to see me for who I am. Sorry, I can't even speak.
yeah.
And, like, I'm pretty open about the fact I like smoking weed and I like chilling, like partying. But like I don't make it about everything. But it's my personality.
I think we were saying that, like, when you go to these fight events or whatever, like, we like to go and not work. We like to go and be fans or whatever. But when I have been to a couple of them and I've been working, like, have a media pass or whatever, like, I will have a drink there, and then I'll like do a couple interviews backstage, and you're a bit licked. You're like, it always makes it better though. Like, you're more confident. Like, you'll just say anything, and I think the interviews are funny because these fighters have just probably won their fight or whatever. They've got all this adrenaline. They don't care. Like, no one cares in fighting.
I'm not sure whether it's just like an interview thing or a podcast thing, but I feel like a lot of people do like either having a drink or having a smoke. I think for the first year of my podcast, I wasn't sober for a single one. I was drinking on stoned. Like, I don't like to do it all the time now, but like I do like to, like, especially when I'm stoned a little bit, I feel like I'm a bit more creative, or I
think they flow a bit more. Yeah. Annoyingly, I
should have had a job.
I know. I was gonna say, I have to go to Brentford after this, but to be fair, that hasn't stopped me before. When I went to, it's if I go to a Fulham game, obviously all my mates are there because I'm a Fulham fan, like, and I'm working it. I'll have like a tinny before, but I can't take the piss. If I'm writing, you can't go over the top. You have to be in like business mode and take it very seriously.
Right, well, I'll wrap up because I think you do need to head off soon. But to end, how would you like, where would you like to see yourself in the next few years? Like, what do you want to be doing? I know it's a very vague question, but
next, how many years have I got?
Okay, right, 3 years. The next 3 years. You were saying that you wanted to kind of come away from working not corporate so much.
Yeah, I think, now's the time. You've got to seize the day. Like, how old are you?
I'm 23.
You're younger than me.
How old are you?
25.
25, it's all right.
So we lost, like a year or whatever from the pandemic, my least favourite word in the world. Pandemic, COVID, whatever. Yeah, anyway, we'll mention it. So, like, you just got to seize the day now. And I'm like, I need to get on with the boxing stuff, the MMA stuff, because I think it's growing. We all know it's growing, but I do think it's missing a woman doing print reporting of it, full stop. I think I can create that link between like papers and MMA, get it in papers, get these fighters' stories in papers. And yeah, I've obviously got my own channel, which I've just started, Boxeo.
Give it a shot.
Started a few months ago.
Where can people find it?
Instagram, YouTube. Well, not really YouTube, more Instagram, and it's Boxeo_. And I just want to be a bit more of my own boss, I guess. But you got to, you've got to put yourself out there. I think I've got to just kind of get my foot in the door a bit more, make some more money from that, and then go away from the football side of things. But
do you want to cut that football out completely, or?
I don't know, because the football thing, it pays the bills. Like it's like, I don't know, I'm doing a lot of football coverage, so I don't think I'll be able to break away from that anytime soon. But yeah, just doing more MMA coverage, I guess, flying out to fun places, interviewing fun people, doing fun things, like being my own boss a bit.
You should fly out to Asia, and if you like doing Thai boxing, just film a shitload of content out there.
Well, actually, interesting. I recently supposed to have a meeting soon with, do you know, One Championship?
Yeah.
I really want to create a link between One Championship and say like the Sun, get it covered more in like a national newspaper. And so I'm supposed to have some meetings with them soon. So hopefully things are going in the right direction.
I'll put you in touch with this fight manager I know, Carl Messon. He's very well connected in the fight game, and I'm sure he might be able to help you out with a few things.
But I think you're probably on the same page as me, really. That's just
we're just trying to grow.
Just growing.
And make some money.
Yeah, exactly.
Your own shit.
Yeah, but no, it's early days.
Early days. But you got to enjoy these moments.
Yeah, there's been some good moments. I can't complain. Like interviewing an AJ already, it's an achievement.
But the best is still yet to come, for sure.
Yeah. No, for sure. Katie Taylor, I want to interview her, even though I feel like she'd just say nothing. She'd just be really quiet. I'd just be fangirling. But yeah, that's the goal.
Is there anyone else that you want to be interviewing?
Oh, I think it's just like big names. I think that really gets you out there. Katie Taylor, definitely though. She's my hero. I'd probably just be weeping and she'd be like, calm down.
Well, Isabella, thank you very much for coming on.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
I've had a good time. Make sure you follow Isabella on Instagram. It's Boxeo as well. You can find all the links. I'll make sure I put them all in the bio. But yeah, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Peace.